The person's name who I was trying to remember was the comedian Dick Gregory. Dick Gregory became an activist and a vegetarian, and he's the one to explain the soybean and George Washington Carver and Henry Ford, and how Henry Ford took the soybean and made the plastic, and that's how your plastic dashboards and bumpers and everything came from the soybean, and how the soybean is not made for human consumption. All right, so yes, you'll live longer being a vegan. The vegans are the longest living people on earth. It used to say that the breatharians were the longest living people on earth. The breatharians used to drink milk they called glacier milk, that it wasn't a milk, it was actually water. The water came down out of the mountains and stuff and picked up so many minerals and stuff until it turned a milky light color by the time it got to the bottom. And it was at a time they said you could drink nothing but that, and you have all the nutrition that you need from that glacier milk. And then there's some places here recently that was selling glacier milk. They was getting their water in Washington, out of the mountains there in Washington and stuff, and they was selling glacier water. But they was known to be at a time the longest living people on earth. Okay, and they were called breatharians, and they didn't drink nothing but that glacier milk. And then of course they got the vegetarians. And then the vegetarians that don't eat soybean and stuff have been known to have a longer life. And then, believe it or not, vegans. Now, vegans, to get off the subject for a few minutes and explain a few things to you, vegans don't eat no meat or meat products, which means vegans don't eat any eggs or no cheese or drink no milk or none of that stuff. But vegans is known to be the longest living people there is. Okay, it is said that people who are vegans don't get diabetes. The only people who get diabetes, it is said, is meat consumers. I got to be careful saying that. Oprah Winfrey said something similar to that, and the meat industry hauled her into court and sued her. She won, but she was not allowed to say that or to say anything. But they left her alone, okay, and she couldn't say it anymore, because the meat industry in America today is one of the biggest industries there is. And but with this climate change, they found that the cattle and stuff was one of the reasons for the climate change and stuff. And I just heard the other day, and like I say, today is June 5th, 2021, and as of right now, Biden is our president, and he was saying they're going to get rid of all meat. Everybody's going to be vegetarians. They've come out now with some meats now that's not made from soybean that tastes just as good as the regular meat, and I wouldn't be surprised by the time that you look at this, ain't nobody going to be eating meat. Everybody's going to be eating a substitute of meat or something that looks like meat that's more healthier for you than meat. Okay, because it's been proven, scientists have proven over and over that the consumption of meat, like cancer, they spend millions and millions of dollars fighting cancer, and it's been shown over and over again that the cause of cancer is from the consumption of beef. But I'm not a doctor. I don't want to go into all of that. I'm not explaining. I'm just saying what I read and what I heard. You do your own investigation. Okay? Anyway, I wanted to get back and explain to you that Mr. Spigner was right. And his sons and I grew up to be very good friends. One more than another. Dale, the oldest son, which you'll see pictures of, he got killed a few years ago. Renee and Gary went into the military. And remember I told you how Renee used to sit into the orchard with some bird shots and a 22 gun, and he would kill the birds from eating the fruit. And he had a little cat there with him, and the cat would eat the birds and stuff. The cat loved Rene. And anyway, Rene got to be such a good shot that he went into the military and came home with all kind of honors and stuff, and a Purple Heart. He was driving the tank and ran over a mine, and the mine exploded up the tank, and he did get hurt a little bit, but he's okay now. I was the best man at his wedding not long ago, as he was at mine, and we go back and forth. We've been there for each other. I've never had a better buddy than Rene Spigner. Rene Spigner, there's been times I've been stuck in the middle of nowhere. All I had to do was call me, Rene, and help was on its way. He kind of reminded me of Mr. Alcon. Remember I tell you how Mr. Alcon, no matter where we was at or what was happening, I could call Mr. Alcon and I knew everything was going to be all right after that, because Mr. Alcon was going to take care of it, and he always did. Well, Rene is the same way. In my different adventures of life, I remember one time I was in middle of nowhere, in between Bakersfield and Barstow, and my truck battery went down, ran out of gas. I was out of money. I called Rene. He came up there and brought me money, brought me fuel in my diesel truck, bought me a new battery. Oh, day. I can sit here and probably go on for over an hour telling you about the different things where Rene have come to my rescue. And if you don't remember, Rene was the guy that my daddy fired. Do you remember me telling you that? Yeah, and he's always been there, man. When I bought my big 40-acre ranch, he was there. He'd help me with the down payment. When I got my big shop that made me all the money, he was there to see that I went in there right. So I have nothing but praise for my good buddy, Rene. Okay. And another buddy that I had when I was a kid, I had a buddy named Michael Hayes. Michael Hayes, no matter where I was going, where we went, or where I was at, he and I were together. We were always together. And ever since Mike was young, and we met when we were both in junior high school, we ran track together. Mike, I'll tell you, he could outrun me, but he couldn't. But anyway, he'd tell you that we could. Anyway, we was close. I did record a faster time than him. I was a track star then, and I ran 9.9. And I don't think he ever ran 9.9, but he'll tell you that he beat me all the time. So anyway, but we've been friends. I mean, I was at his mother's funeral, he was at my mother's funeral. I was at his father's funeral, he was at my father's funeral. I was at his brother's funeral, he was at my brother's funeral. I mean, we've been there for each other for years. But when Mike was little, like, we used to take, there was a town, a new town that they built. Dale Webb built a town called Sun City. And Sun City was about 15, 20 miles outside of Paris, California, from where we lived. Because we lived in the valley, which was the other side, or the north side of Paris. So you had to drive, ride to Paris, and then you had to go about 10 miles on the other side of Paris to get to Sun City. Dale Webb built a retirement community called Sun City. And there was no industry in Paris and stuff, so Michael Hayes and I would get on our bicycles, and we would ride our bicycles to Sun City, and then we would knock on doors and we'd wash people's cars in their driveway for 99 cents a piece. So, like I say, it was a retirement community, and a lot of the older people and stuff didn't want to get out there washing their car and stuff. So we would take a bucket with us and some sponges and, soap and stuff, whatever we needed, and that's how we made our money. We would do that all summer long. So that's the way I bought my school clothes to get back to school, or different money if I wanted records or different things to get covered. And so we would talk. And Michael Hayes used to always say that he wanted to drive bus for as long as I can remember. And I can tell you, this is going back to junior high school. He always said he was going to be a truck driver. He was going to be a bus driver. Well, Michael Hayes, he's the only person that I knew that grew up to be exactly what he said he was going to be. Drive bus. He drove 20 years for the Oakland City Bus, and then he drove 20 years at Universal Studios driving the tram around, the bus that people got in to see everything. And he retired from that. And now he's sitting pretty. Both companies that he retired from had nice 401ks. So between the two 401ks and his retirement, he's sitting real pretty now. And for the side thing, he does people's income taxes and stuff because he just enjoyed doing it. But that was my buddy and still is my buddy, Michael Hayes. All right, now let's get back in advance to what I covered. I think most of what I wanted to cover back growing up. Paris was a place, they used to say that Paris was a place where Los Angeles rejects went, because in Paris you can have some chickens in the backyard, and you can get your own eggs, you can have a pig back there and a cow and a garden and things that you couldn't do in the city. And at that particular time, a lot of the people, like my folks, my father was from Ardmore, Oklahoma, and my mother was from Georgia, Waycross, Georgia. And they were country, they grew up in the country. Although in Oklahoma, Dad grew up in the city, but it was across the tracks. And we'll go into another time about the Jim Crow era and across the tracks. But anyway, Dad lived across the tracks, and that was a little different. In Paris, what they did is they created like another South there, where everybody, like I said, they had the chickens or the pigs or the cows or stuff, because like people say in the city, they found that in the city that if you ran out of work or got fired or something, you could starve to death, when your unemployment ran out and stuff. But when they was used to being able to get their old shotgun or 22 or whatever and go out into the trees and kill a squirrel or a rabbit or something, and grab some greens or something out of the garden, and they could still eat. But they found out that in the city you couldn't do all that. You weren't even allowed to have no gun, and there wasn't no rabbits, and in city life. City life is totally different than the country life was. And then in the city, you had to keep you a job, or if you didn't want to go to jail, you had to keep you some kind of legal hustle. And like my dad, for as long as I can remember, he always worked 2 or 3 different places.